Hi everyone, my name is Gerard Avellino. I am currently a PhD student in linguistics at Rutgers University here in New Jersey. I graduated from Cal State Fullerton in 2019 with a bachelor's in linguistics and French. And my last year at Cal State Fullerton, I spent studying abroad in Paris with MISEFA. I received the Fund for Education Abroad Rainbow Scholarship that year, which was a great help. And I'm here to answer any questions you guys have about the scholarship.
Awesome. Thank you, Gerard. All right. So, a little bit of a few housekeeping and logistics here. So, we are recording this session, so we can hit OK to the record button. Also, please feel free to keep yourself muted during the presentation. And if you do have questions, please use the chat feature. And the recording will be available two places. One is our CSUF Study Abroad playlist on YouTube, but also on our Expo website. So, where you've been clicking the join buttons and things, those will be transformed into watch recordings. All right, so let's get started. Oops. Oh, this is a separate slide. Give me 1 second to stop that one and switch it over to the next presentation. Here we go. Slideshow and share my screen again. Okay, there we go. So now the Fund for Education Abroad Scholarship Information Session. Okay, so what is FEA? So FEA is kind of unique in that it is a 501c3 organization, which was founded in 2010 to diversify the face of study abroad. FEA is the only independently funded study abroad scholarship provider. What does that mean? So we prior to this, at 10 o'clock, I had a presentation on the Gilman Scholarship, which is another major scholarship for studying abroad. That one is actually funded through the US government and is run through the State Department and multiple other bureaus and organizations in support of that scholarship. FEA is actually privately funded. It's funded through donations, it's funded through corporations and things like that. And so it does not receive any government funding for their scholarships. Since 2010, FEA has funded 590 scholarships totaling more than $2 million. Okay. The mission for the Fund for Education, or FEA, provides scholarships and ongoing support to students who are underrepresented among the US study abroad population. It makes life-changing international experiences accessible to all by supporting racial and ethnic minority students, first-generation, community college students, and this is not an exhaustive list. So there are even more students out there that they are trying to help send abroad. And they try to do so before, during, and after they participate in their education abroad. And so later on, Gerard's going to tell us about all the other things that he's gotten to do through his participation with FEA. Okay, there are generally 3 types of scholarships associated with the Fund for Education Abroad. The first one are general scholarships, and which Gerard received when he mentioned the Rainbow Scholarship. So that's kind of one of their, like this, general scholarships. And then they have scholarships that are named after alumni or donors or folks. And so an example would be the A. Rewari Family Scholarship for study in Denmark. So this would be a scholarship that applicants would be considered for if they were applying to study in Denmark. We also have one for India. There's one for African American students studying abroad, and so on. The third type of scholarship that is also included in the FEA scholarship, which is another one I particularly want to highlight, are the Access Partner Scholarships. So what does this mean? So this list of partner scholarships are tied to some of the non-CCF provider programs that we also offer. During this expo, you might have popped in on some of these info sessions with these providers: CUPPA, AIFS, FIE, just to name, USAC, just to name a few. So if you are applying to study abroad in these countries, you can also be considered for an FEA if you are trying to, sorry, not countries, with these provider type programs. And our students do participate on these all the time. Okay, some eligibility requirements. In my Gilman presentation a few hours ago, there were a lot more requirements to that one. This one I like for because it kind of serves a broader spectrum of students. And so the first difference, we have somebody in the waiting room. Okay, and so the first requirement is that applicants for the FEA scholarship need to be a US citizen or permanent resident. So that's something that it's different with the Gilman. With the Gilman, you do have to be a US citizen, but this one allows permanent residents to apply as well. You do have to currently be enrolled as an undergraduate student at a US college or university. So that's something that the Gilman and FEA have in common. The other thing is that your program must be eligible for credit at your home institution. That's another commonality that the Gilman shares with it. So what that means is that the program you are choosing to study abroad and do, you must be receiving credit. Now, not you might assume that all of our programs are study abroad, but that's why we're actually called the Study Abroad and Global Engagement Office, because not all of our programs you have to take credit for. We have volunteer programs where you're not taking any classes. So in that case, the Gilman nor the FEA would be applicable to that. So only if you are taking classes abroad and transferring it to receive credit are you able to apply for the FEA and the Gilman. For the FEA, your program must be at least 4 weeks, totaling 28 days in length. If it's 27 days, it is not applicable. So you really need to meet that threshold. And that's actually a big difference between the Gilman and this scholarship now too. So the Gilman actually got rid of the program length requirement, which is nice. So 2 weeks program, things like that are applicable. For here, it must be a 4-week program, 28 days. How to apply. One of the things also that I like about FEA and their application process is it's not technically as cumbersome as the Gilman, although students who are eligible should also apply for that. All the scholarships, you should apply. But so we listed those 3 groupings of scholarships. And the nice thing about FEA, it's one online application, and that one application will help you be considered for all the scholarships you are eligible for. Okay. And the components are the online application form, a copy of your unofficial transcript or transcripts if you are a transfer student who transferred units into Cal State Fullerton, took a community class, things like that, the financial aid form, and a recommendation letter. For the financial aid form, so one big thing, if you've been doing your research, looking at different scholarships you can apply for, so there is not a hard requirement in terms of necessarily demonstrating your level of financial need. The financial aid office is going to fill out this form to kind of provide that financial picture. But in comparison, again, to the Gilman, you have to be receiving the Pell Grant in order to qualify for the Gilman. FEA, you do not. And there's a lot of students who are in different financial circumstances that aren't Pell Grant recipients. I was one of them. So this would have been one that I would have loved to have applied for had I either known about it or existed or came across 20 years ago when I studied abroad. So this is one that I could have been eligible for. And then your recommendation letter. Okay. So how are participants or recipients determined? So a little bit about the scoring matrix. So FEA applicants are scored on 3 factors. So one is demonstrating, again, that financial need. So you don't have to be receiving any form necessarily of aid or grants or things like that, but they're going to base it on the information that is provided on that financial aid form. And that makes 25% of the consideration of the final score. The second component are your demographic factors, which is based on information you will self-report in your online application. That makes 25% as well. And then it comes down to the academic plan and preparedness. So this is the part where it's based on your essays, the strength of your essays, how much thought you've given into your program and being intentional about how it's going to serve you, your unofficial transcript or transcripts, and that letter of recommendation. All of these things make up the rest, the 50% of that final score. Okay, how much can you get through the FEA? Well, FEA awards scholarships of up to $10,000 for students who plan to study abroad for an academic year. That's what Gerard got, so he's going to tell more about that. Students who are doing semester-long programs, either in the fall or spring, can get up to $5,000. And then there's a prorated rate for summer programs with a minimum of $1,250, and it's based on the number of weeks your summer program is. Okay, in terms of the application period, for spring 2022 programs. The application opened back in July and we've been posting it. Hopefully you follow us on social media. But the deadline is next Wednesday, September 15th. I want to make this distinction at 9 a.m. because the website says 12 p.m. That is Eastern. If you are interested in doing global things, you need to make sure you're paying attention to the time zones. And so your application is going to be due 9 a.m. Pacific. If you think it's noon, you're going to be way too late because it's going to be a different time zone. So make sure that you pay attention to that. And then fall 22, summer 22, and academic year 22-2023 applications will open mid-November and go all the way to late January. So pay attention to those dates. Okay. In terms of preparing for your application, here are a couple of tips that FEA provides. In your scholarship essay, so I cannot stress the importance of the essay enough. So this committee is not going to reach out to people to interview you. You're not going to have a chance to vocalize and express who you are. You need the essay is the interview. That's how they're going to get to know you. So you need to really dig, understand yourself, understand what you're trying to do, and convey that through your essay. And so some tips would be connecting your past experiences to your study abroad goals. What in your past or what in your development has made you want to do this? How did you come to the point where you are now? Also, how have the things that you've experienced prepared you for this? Okay. When it comes to the recommendation, provide a recommender that can speak for your character, both professionally and personally, and be honest and passionate in every part of the application. It says passion does shine through. Having read some essays, that makes a difference. And so the other thing too is you'll want to provide details. And so you might think of things that of yourself that are important to other people, but don't do that because that's the only way we're going to get to know you. So in terms of writing, fill in the gaps. If you mention something, you need to connect that to a point that you're making. Does that make sense? Don't say, well, I hope to, this is my goal someday, and it's really vague. Be specific. I did this at some point, or, I've had a lot of, trauma or challenges. Try, if you're comfortable, try to elaborate on those things, fill in the gaps, because that's the only way we're going to get to know you. That's the kind of point that I'm trying to make. Show your willingness to embrace diversity, because when you study abroad, especially in the times of COVID right now, I cannot express that enough, how hard it is going. Like the journey is just going to get harder because you're going to have to deal with visas and time things and delays, and we don't know, like a program can close. And so now more than ever, it's going to be important to demonstrate how you plan to be flexible, adaptable, and meet those challenges, because you are going to face diversity abroad, culture shock, obstacles while abroad, especially with COVID. And FEA wants to know that the people they're giving their money to is going to be ready for that they're not just going to cancel when it gets hard. And just making sure that you show your resiliency, that you can persevere and be open-minded. Okay, some additional information. When you become an FEA scholar, you're going to have a lot of these benefits that you can partake in. So you may have the opportunity to join their FEA Alumni Council, the FEA Alumni Trustees or the Board of Trustees, FEA Alumni Internships. And you might also receive a travel stipend to attend FEA events in Washington, D.C., like the Alumni Conference and Scholar Gala. Gerard, remind me, did you attend one of these? Did you go to the gala or no? Yeah,
I did.
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay. So
it was a good time.
Yay. All right. And so in 2019, FEA awarded 176 scholarships totaling more than 600,000. 2 years before that, in the 2 years that they've been awarding it, they doubled that. So in 2017, it was 51 scholarships with 225, and it just keeps growing the more that more students kind of know about it. So hopefully you get to be like Gerard and be a recipient. And so now I'm going to turn over the mic to who you really want to hear from. And so he already introduced himself, but Gerard is one of our CSUF alums, and also received one of the FEA scholarships. Again, he studied abroad on one of our reciprocal exchange programs to MISEFA in Paris during 2018-2019, and was awarded the $10,000 Rainbow Scholarship. So Gerard, go ahead.
All right.
Sorry, I said a mouthful there, but anything you want to say about being an FEA recipient, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, I think receiving these scholarships basically made my time studying abroad a lot easier. It gave me a lot of peace of mind. It made sure that I got to do the things that I wanted to do, not just in my program, but beyond. Because when you get, for example, a scholarship from FEA, they're going to want you to put that towards your tuition and fees, which means that the other financial aid that you might get from the university, like your Pell Grant, now you can use that for other things to supplement your education. You can not only do your program, but on weekends, you can travel elsewhere, learn something new elsewhere. And I was able to do that a lot. I got to visit a lot of other countries besides France during my study abroad. Got to meet a lot of people. I got to meet my eventual husband when I was traveling. So yeah, it was great. And not only did I have those opportunities, but just having that extra money makes it easier to not stress out over life, like having to pay your rent at your student apartment or having to buy food and budget things. Yeah, it made things a lot easier, and that's why I always tell people to go apply for these scholarships as much as you can, as many scholarships as you can. You never know, you might get one or two of them, and it's going to be a huge relief once you get it. Yeah. So I found out about FEA kind of late in the process because I was determined to study abroad, but I kind of just made that decision in like December that I wanted to go the next fall. And with FEA, the deadlines are in like January. So when I was Googling around for scholarships, I saw FEA, the FEA deadline was coming soon, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get on this right now. So literally my Christmas break was spent writing these essays, not only for FEA, but for Gilman also. So writing these essays, contacting the professors that I knew were available on such short notice. So yeah, don't be like me and apply a month before. If you could do it even earlier, that would be so much better. Because they really do look at those recommendation letters a lot. They want to know how you've interacted with people in the academe, people who know your work and your personality, how you are in class, because you're going abroad to study, and they kind of want to know from your professors, how are you a good student? So yeah, those are very important, and you kind of want to make sure that you could get those letters in, you could ask for those letters with as much advance notice as possible. So yeah, I was able to talk to, actually I got a recommendation from a community college professor that I had years ago before I even came to Cal State Fullerton. Yeah, it helped me a lot. Oh, one thing that I did want to mention was sometimes they do give interviews at FEA. Yeah. Well, I don't know if they do it anymore, but I definitely got an interview. So what they would do is when they look at your application and they figure out, okay, this student has a certain disability, or the student is an LGBTQ person, or the student is first in their family to go to university, or a part of a certain ethnicity, they're going to actually figure out which of their scholarships would fit you the best. Some of them would require interviews. For me, what happened was they emailed me a couple of weeks after their reviews, and they said, hey, we're actually thinking of giving you the Rainbow Scholarship, and we want to know more specifically what you're going to do as a member of the LGBTQ community. And so they called me up on the phone, and we talked about all these things. And so it's important to get those essays in and get those essays done very well, but also be prepared just in case they do want to call you and get more information. So yeah, what else did they say? Oh, I do actually know the questions that they ask in the essay. So there's two essays, both of them are 750 words. First of all, you have to describe specifically why you chose the program you're going to do. So you already have to know everything about your program, basically, at this point. know where you're going, know what you're going to study, know the timeline, know what you're going to get back at your university when you go. And the second is you actually have to think of a specific instance where you persevered in a situation that might challenge your cultural senses. They want you to relate a personal experience um, that basically made you think, okay, this is something I don't usually do in my day-to-day life. How do I surpass that challenge? And yeah, these essays are very important. Like Eileen said, the essays, your transcripts, and the interviews and your recommendations, those are 50% of what they consider. Um, Luckily, yeah, the numbers are growing more and more with the number of scholarships that they give. And honestly, very often these scholarships are looking for people to go apply because there's so many scholarships out there that just that don't even get that many people to apply for them. So, just do it. Just go apply. It'll take a bit of your time, but it's worth it. Because not only can you use these essays for the scholarship, but they train you to write, they train you to think about the things that you want to express, especially because there's a word limit. You want to kind of be concise, be specific, but also inspirational, and all these things in 750 words or less. So that was tough. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. I mean, it was, I couldn't have experienced Paris and, my study abroad without the same way without getting these scholarships.